Thanks for joining the Path podcast. It's July 25th, 2023. My name is Tani. I'm here with Auk. Hey, Auk.
Hey, Tani. It's good to be back with you. I think we took a week off.
I lost my voice.
You lost your voice.
It's kind of coming back.
You sound good.
Thank you.
Good.
You sound good as well.
Thank you very much. So I heard a new take the other day, and it really made me think, and I actually don't know the answer to the question.
Okay.
Is it love the bike you ride, or is it love the bike you ride?
It's love the bike you ride.
Right. Appreciate the bike that you ride.
And there's a song. Love the one you're with. Love the one you're with. I'm a terrible singer.
Okay.
Can't believe I just did that.
I mean, you're not a terrible singer, but
no,
okay.
Trust me.
Okay.
I'll be the judge of that. Thank you. No. Love the bike you ride, and it's a slight riff on that song.
Got it.
Kind of a classic rock song. I can't remember much about it.
But
yeah.
it's not cause and effect. Like love the bike, and that causes you to ride.
There's no comma either, or like
But on some of it is cut into two.
It's a good point. Yeah, and that was more of how easy to read. I remember making that decision, 20 years ago, and it's like, are you going to read in a whole circle, 360 degrees?
No, I think it's more like this, right? Yeah.
With upside down writing and stuff.
Yeah, that came from my youngest.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
and that shows that to me that shows that someone who is thinking in terms of deep comprehension, and also in terms of maybe structure, like maybe someone who's very involved in grammar or maybe coding or something where you're structured.
Right. Yeah, this is actually little Joel, because we do have in my family we have a big Joel that's actually Joel from the shop.
Yeah.
And then little Joel is my youngest.
Yeah.
We don't call him little Joel, actually. Just call him Joel.
Not for a while.
Yeah, not for a while, because since he's bigger than I am.
Sounds dangerous.
Right, exactly. Anyways, love the bike you ride.
I've really enjoyed that slogan for a long time, and I'm glad we chose it.
I am too.
But, as much as I don't think we ever really intended the meaning that you asked about, I think there are some different ways that you can interpret it that are accurate.
Right.
For example, it could mean don't get a new bike, or it could mean get a new bike.
Right.
Just for example.
Right.
So
if you don't love it in the store, you won't wear it at home.
Or just more importantly, whatever your bike situation is, we hope you love your bike.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, that's good. So maybe before we jump into shop news, we're going to bring back a segment on the show, listener questions. So thanks to those who picked up on my post on Instagram and sent me DMs. We'll try to get to those today. And in the future, I think we're going to try to do this regularly. So always feel free to direct message me on Instagram at _Auk, AUK. And Tani is Tani Walling.
Instagram, Tani Walling.
Tani Walling, yeah.
Should we just start with those? So
yeah, totally. Let's, and then
cool.
we'll jump onto shop news.
Yeah.
All right. So Frank sends us a couple of questions. He says, "Can you guys expand more on your ride fantasy? Like when you travel and are scoping out rides you want to go on, what key things are you looking for? For example, fun climb with a view and long descent, i.e. whole enchilada. Super access to local trails, i.e. Bentonville. Lift laps for days." I read that and I was like, that's a different take on ride fantasy.
Yeah. I think those are some good questions.
Yeah, I agree.
I could jump in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, for me, one thing, my ride fantasy could vary depending on, is this a ride that I'm sneaking in on a family trip versus am I going to explore an area deeply and get used to the area?
Right.
And a lot of times my ride trips also have an element of getting to better weather. So like here in Southern California, a lot of times July, August, September, it gets pretty hot. And I like to try to get up to the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
Or Colorado at elevation.
Right.
Or
maybe Santa Cruz area.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Humboldt. For me, a really consistent thing that I look for is big elevation change. Or at least some steeper terrain.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a huge elevation change if it takes place over a short period of time.
Right.
But I do enjoy like the acceleration of some steeper terrain
in a new area. Right.
And just anytime I'm riding, here's some examples. Like Sky Park, super, super fun.
Right.
I love going to Sky Park.
Right.
The Comet Trail has some terrain that's kind of steep enough to get me excited.
Right.
And then the jump lines are kind of a different thing, so that's cool. But in general, there's not a lot of gravity fed acceleration.
Right.
So that's something I look for.
Gravity fed acceleration.
Yeah. And to me, I like a little bit of tech too.
Sure.
So another way of saying that, I'm looking for somewhere that probably has, some more technical trails and not just flow trails.
Right. Yeah, and someplace like that's sort of why I appreciate Sedona.
Sedona's chunky and ledgy.
Right.
And there is some sudden elevation change.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Frank, if he meant like he wanted to climb the whole enchilada.
He mentioned that he might climb the whole enchilada, and I thought, what is that? Probably 6,000 feet, 5,000 feet.
I think it might be.
Like we've done climbs like that. We have also, though, there's a fair amount of up and down on the way down the whole enchilada. I remember being tired after shuttling the whole enchilada.
I remember that too, and I don't think I did the whole enchilada.
And because I think
when I went
when
with
we
you,
did it together, the topmost
was,
part was snowed in, and we didn't get to do it.
Right,
and we were still tired at the bottom.
that was a good long ride.
So that was super fun. Mostly not steep enough to be fully my ride fantasy.
Right.
But so much elevation change and so much riding with so much kind of cool scenery and varied terrain. And there was definitely some tech. That notch section is fully tech.
Right. I remember that. Jake almost made it.
Yeah. I think I was riding my 5010.
I think you might have been right.
Yeah. That's definitely that one section is a section that like you could use some travel and some big tires on and stuff.
Right. Now, you might be paying for it in many other sections of that trail.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting point that you bring up about like your ride fantasy varies whether you're trying to squeeze a ride in a couple hours, like whether you've got the kids are down for a nap or something like that, or if this is actually a destination ride.
Yep. So another ride fantasy for me is big rock features like granite rollers or like sandstone rollers like we have in Laguna and like you have in Squamish and some other places.
Right.
Just as far as personal ride fantasies go.
Sure, yeah.
I am all about kind of the coastal sagebrush, chaparral environment and desert and high desert and everything we have here locally.
Right.
Has just an awesome kind of. Not everyone can connect with the kind of a lot. For some people, it's easier to connect with the forest, right? And the trees and the greenery and all that. I really do love our nature and our scenery, but because sometimes change is nice, and because travel is about exploring different stuff.
Yep.
I often like to. One of my ride fantasies for traveling is be in the forest.
I agree.
Be under tree, like have to go find some clear goggles because you never use them in SoCal unless you're night riding, or some really good transitions because riding in the tree, in like true tree riding, the lenses we use in our glasses and goggles, you're blind.
Right.
In true tree cover.
Right.
So that's a ride fantasy for me.
I like to get away for a weekend or not just trying to squeeze a ride in. One of my ride fantasies. I enjoy, especially that time we went to North Star, right? To go to a different place of lift assisted riding.
Yep. And for that one too, those camaraderies, it can be a big ride fantasy.
That is actually a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
And on shuttle days in particular for me, especially a lot of times when we've done some big shuttle days, it's been kind of in our local high desert or desert on the other side of the Santa Ana Mountains.
Sure.
Which it's just it's less developed. It's less civilized. It kind of feels a little bit more lawless.
Right.
And you're shuttling, and it just kind of feels like you're getting outside the lines a little bit. And that's a ride fantasy for me, with like shuttling with friends and kind of feeling like doing something different and not being in the park.
Right. And even going, I guess years past, even some of the parks that we would go to had trails that were on the fringes.
Yeah.
And those were always fun to go to. That's part of being on a little bit on the edge.
Yep. And I'm a sucker for a long descent too.
Yeah.
I did a ride once that I felt like a downhill bike and a full camelback with water and food was appropriate. And that's a cool ride fantasy.
Yeah.
Because there was that much hiking and wilderness and duration. It was, I think 5,000 feet of elevation change.
Right.
And so
we have here, there's the San Gabriel Mountains as well with some shuttle service. And that's to get you to the top of a local mountain called Mount Wilson. I want to say you probably, 4,000 feet if you top to bottom. And you might get 2 of those in.
Or you might do a hike a bike and get 1.5.
That's what we did,
Yeah. Or
a
climb and 1.5.
Yep.
Connect.
Yeah. I think one day was 4,000 feet of pedaling / hiking, and it was like an 8,000 foot day. That was fantastic. And those are long descents with some chunky, I don't know if
those trails are old Forest Service type trails, so they're technical in the sense that they have a lot of sharp turns in them,
right,
and off camber, and generally not designed to be ridden, which is still fun,
right, but not that same, like, what did you say, gravity assisted acceleration.
I would say though there's enough speed and chunk for me out there to keep me interested,
right,
for sure.
How about the Santa Barbara trails? And I remember, camaraderie is part of this as well.
For sure. Right? We used to ride tunnel sometimes. I believe it's San Ysidro is one of the more kind of pedal up single tracks that's fun.
Right.
Ride burned. Naps, was that what it was called?
Yeah.
I haven't ridden tunnel in 15 years or something, but from what I remember, there's a lot of not that steep sections. Right. And a lot of kind of barely downhill sections.
Right.
It is an epic descent from pretty good elevation overlooking the ocean down into Santa Barbara, and some kind of fun chunky sections.
Right.
For me, Bellingham and then Squamish is the thing. For shuttling, for pedaling up, for anything except park riding.
Right. And that was part of a second question, is that what are your favorite point-to-point shuttles? And that we've kind of touched on some.
I like to shuttle Joplin.
Yeah.
Which is a local trail for us.
Right.
And definitely some good duration of descending.
Yep.
Some good speed.
Yep. There's a decent little climb in the middle of it, but once you get out of that little climb from Old Camp, back onto the San Diego Truck Trail, it's a hoot all the way back down.
And it's a trail that a lot of us have ridden. It's kind of like a big loop XC trail bike ride.
Right.
And to ride it with fresh legs is a whole different experience, right?
Right.
Really different.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And that's, What's that like? If you're really charging hard, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 minutes?
I saw some Strava times right around 10 minutes.
Whew.
I think that is pro level.
Yep.
I think for a while, I think I was I can't remember. I was sort of proud of one time I didn't Strava it a bunch of times,
Right.
but I think it was like 13 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
that's
say
a lot
most
of-
people probably take 20 to 25 minutes to
Yeah.
ride it.
That's a lot of downhill.
Yeah. and some just a lot of kind of various sections to get through that you could get through fast or not,
Right.
like just over and over again.
Right.
And
right.
nothing totally crazy, but nothing easy to get through fast.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's why when I see those times, that 10, 11-minute time.
And that's working hard for 10 or 11 minutes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard push.
And a lot of those, like those sections of the trail, it's just hard to get through.
I mean,
Fast. I mean,
when I try to do a top to bottom run on that trail, for sure, it's all about breathing and relaxing and trying not to blow up. It's not about really pinning it.
right.
It's that long of a descent. And it's still technical enough that you got to stay on point and carry speed too, because some of those sections get harder when you slow down.
Right.
Like,
Yes. I've had that experience multiple times on that trail. And in the middle of that trail, there's a couple of little climbs,
yeah.
punchy climbs.
And some of them you can carry a lot of speed into and get
Make
through a
it
lot of the
easier,
climb.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really cool section. I've had some. I rode that trail alone a couple times and on weekdays, and kind of had these moments of like, if something happens to me, I might not get found for a little while, like that kind of feeling.
I've done the same and had those same thoughts, and maybe once or twice, like my mental state really got off kilter, and I was struggling. I kind of had to stop and just kind of, yep. Someone will find you eventually. Okay, get yourself back here.
Have we talked on the podcast about how I have the old original Joplin trail sign?
No.
It's one of my prized possessions.
Oh my gosh.
So it's on like a 2x4, and it looks like someone made it in wood shop with like the engraver or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And so one day back in probably, I don't know, let's just say maybe the year 2000 or so.
Okay.
Our buddy Keith, who's currently
Right.
leading a lot of trail work out in Trabuco,
Yep.
had put together a trail work to replace this trail sign, which was probably 20, 30 years old at the time.
Right.
And it was like leaning over. It looked really unprofessional.
Right.
And we replaced it with, a cement pile, dug a hole, poured cement,
It's got
metal sign,
Yep. Metal sign.
proper update.
Yep.
And someone just kind of took the old trail sign and threw it in a bush. I don't even remember who.
Oh my gosh.
I guess this will, it's just wood, I guess. And, I kind of quietly picked it up and put it in my Camelback. And I had ridden my Voodoo single speed. Remember my Zumbi up to that, and I rode down Joplin with the trail sign in my back.
Nice.
And I have that displayed in my living room still.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Very seriously one of my prized possessions.
That is, that's a piece of history there.
Yeah.
Mountain bike history, outdoor history. Right?
I missed that time in my life when I had a Saturday to ride up to Joplin, work for an hour or two on helping the crew put in a new trail sign, and then ride down Joplin.
All right. Yeah, exactly.
It's been a minute since I've had a Saturday for something like that.
My life might be coming back around to maybe Saturdays like that from time to time.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm
What
not
other
sure.
ride fantasies can we help this person with?
Well, let's see. How about jumping off onto another question that's related, but this is from Jason. And he says, I'm starting to plan a mountain bike vacation. If you had 5 days anywhere in the lower 48.
I mean, for me, it's barely in the lower 48, but probably Bellingham. Right. Because a lot of the country's pretty hot right now.
Right.
Bellingham might be hot right now too, but probably not as hot.
For a summer vacation.
It
It
depends.
He doesn't say summer. He just says five days.
But that is for that kind of enduro-y, techie ride fantasy with some forest. And I love that it's right over the ocean, like this. Not the ocean, the bay. It's a bay, and there's also I forget what they call it.
Is that the Puget Sound?
Yes, the Sound.
All right. No, that's... Yeah, I would love
I'm
to
not
get
sure
up
if
there.
it's the Puget Sound.
But it's a sound.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah, what was the one enduro event years ago? A bunch of folks from the shop.
Ashland?
Ashland, right.
Ashland's definitely one of the
that's
ultimate
not
shuttle
Bellingham,
spots.
right? But
that's a good spot, and you get some forestiness, but it's drier forest.
Right.
Hot this time of year in Ashland.
Right.
Very much. Colorado might be nice.
Yep.
Some parts of Colorado could be awesome.
And
Keystone, maybe.
Years ago, you did like was it a month or something like that on the road? And
I did 6 weeks, and it was awesome. And I was working from the road, and I had some family stuff and some business stuff along the way.
Right.
And I did Ashland, and I did Oak Ridge, and I brought my dirt bike,
right.
and I made it all the way to Squamish, and it was awesome.
Right. But that was more than 5 days.
That was 6 weeks.
But were there 5-day periods in there?
I spent about 5 days in Bellingham. Yeah. I think if that's too far north, depending if you like the kind of riding we like, maybe, and if you're not a super rule follower, maybe the campus trails in Santa Cruz.
Right.
If this time of year to get out of the heat for something maybe a little more XC, you could do Montañas de Oro.
Sure. I mean, if you had 5 days, you could hit those as well as Downeyville.
Downeyville, I feel, Downeyville's pretty out of the way though.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Although now, on the other hand, if you were going to mix in maybe Tahoe and Downeyville and some other stuff in that area, that might be a good alternative.
Yeah.
But Downeyville's real hot right now too.
Right. And that once you start getting there, that's you're moving for 5 days. That's a lot of moving for 5 days. I'm not sure if that's a Ride Fantasy 5-day trip.
Yeah, and this is a pretty West Coast centric conversation so far.
True.
I
wish I knew a little bit more on the east side of the country, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder where this person is.
Let me see. I don't know. Jason, if you're out there, shoot me a DM. Thanks for the questions. Let's see. We've got a couple technical questions, semi-technical questions, or techie. This is from John. He says, since moving here, I have moved to a Turbo Levo, and my question is around brakes. I'm 230, and the bike is 50 pounds. I feel I don't have enough stopping power stock codes. I've had them rebled and upgraded rotors, 220 and 200, to the HS2s. I have the same brakes on my Yeti SB150 and less of an issue. I ride my local trails after work and trip down to Orange County on the weekends. Is it me, or is it time to upgrade brakes?
So I'm fascinated by the sand brakes are more of an issue on the other bike. And I'm sure the Turbo Levo is probably 10 pounds heavier or something he said. Did he say the difference in weight?
No, but SB150 is probably not 40 pounds.
So 15, 20, 30, maybe 20 pounds.
Maybe 15.
Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's just kind of the enough to tip the scales of overwhelm on those brakes.
Right.
I want to touch on what could possibly be going wrong other than brakes, and then let's talk about brake upgrades.
Okay, great.
I would be curious if it's both brakes that are fading. A lot of times I see rear brakes getting overused and fading.
Right.
I'm also comment on new rotors. I wonder, so things that could be wrong: contamination on the pads or rotors.
Right.
So if the pads were contaminated or glazed,
and
you replace the rotors, that may not be good enough.
Right.
Or if you have
contamination.
Yeah. Or is everything truly all burnished in if you got new rotors?
Right.
And are the new rotors burnished in?
Right.
And then
Yep.
as I mentioned, if they got bled,
Yep.
so did they need a bleed? If they needed a bleed, sometimes a bleed needs to happen twice because you can't see if there's air in there.
Right.
And so if the lever's going to the bar, or if they're getting soft,
Right.
I would say probably bleed again.
Right.
As far as brake upgrades go, you could try running just thicker rotors in those.
He's
codes,
already running the HS2s,
which I believe are 2.0 maybe. I think you
Okay.
could still go thicker.
Okay.
So HS2s are thicker than traditional strength.
Right.
I think they went from maybe 1.8 to 2.0 or
Got
something
it.
like that.
Got it. Right.
We've got some over there. We could check. I've stumbled over this on this podcast before, but I think I'm closer to accurate this time.
Yep.
So I think you could still squeeze some thicker rotors than the HS2s in there.
Yep. Maybe material of the pad
Could be. Yeah. Or maybe just that heavier e-bike is pushing you past. Here's one. Maybe the e-bike's getting the rider to the top of bigger, steeper descents.
And you're fresher.
They're heating those brakes up harder.
Yep.
I
And you're
could
fresher.
I could definitely see
Could
that.
be fresher.
Combined with the e-bike being heavier.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need more brakes.
Yep.
Maybe some TRPs, maybe some Hayes, maybe some Maguras.
Yep.
I don't hands down like Maguras more than I do codes, but I do think they ultimately have a little more power.
I had a friend who had mentioned this similar effect, and he moved on to Saints.
Saints might be a good solution also.
And he says game changer. I mean, I suspect, I don't know, there could have been other things going on.
Yeah,
before
and
he tried it.
if it's a heat problem, the Shimano heat dissipation system might be helpful.
Yep.
With the finned pads
Right.
and the sandwiched rotors and everything.
Right.
TRPs seem to be a popular choice for this kind of thing. Right. And
they seem to be popular on the World Cup downhill circuit as well.
yeah, I think that could be a good solution if you're going to upgrade.
Right. Yeah, so try a few things.
You might be
Even, do you find that
the rider might be able to get a feel for if both brakes have similar stopping power by just going back and forth between the bikes, like
right.
in the neighborhood.
Right.
And start there, and if they do, then maybe you need a brake upgrade.
Right.
If they don't, maybe you could get your codes up to full function.
Yep. Do you find that the I won't even say heavier, but heavier, faster rider, it's more important to bed those brake rotors and pads in properly?
Maybe.
Like, I've never had a real issue, and I don't think I've ever did it quote properly. I have a real systematic approach to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if heavier, faster riders, maybe that's more. I don't know. I'm speculating.
I wouldn't be that surprised. Maybe there's, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah. So,
but I would also tell that person, if it's a heat issue, try shorter bursts of harder braking and then stay off the brakes in the techie sections, and that's good for your riding anyway.
Right.
A lot of times the same thing that's causing people to overheat brakes, it would be really good for their riding to change it. And it's not that they're overusing their brakes exactly.
Right.
It's that they're using them too little for too long instead of using them harder for shorter periods of time.
Right. And that is it's a pretty significant mental shift in your riding.
Right.
If you're used to dragging your brakes, especially that rear brake.
Just kind of managing speed by dragging the brakes.
Yep.
But, and just to clarify, that really disrupts your traction and everything.
It does.
It's really not that safe.
Right.
Like, you should be doing hard bursts of braking when you can, in spots where you can really keep your bike going straight and upright if you can.
Right. Yeah, if you're dragging your brake through a corner, you're trying to you're making the bike want to stand itself up.
Yep. And if you're dragging your brake when you hit say a loose baby head, you're a lot more likely to slide out and lose
that
control.
is very true. Right. Yeah. So anyways, there are different brake options out there. How much more it is?
And I think some of them are more powerful a little bit than codes. Maybe. And then there's also the part where some of them generate the force with less force from the finger.
Yes.
And that's for sure true of Shimano with the servo waves.
Yes.
So even like 4-piston XT.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I used to not like that feeling about the Shimanos, but I've put them on a couple bikes recently, and I'm really enjoying that.
You just have to be used to it.
Right.
I feel like if I ride Shimanos for a couple rides, my first few stops on SRAM brakes, I feel like I didn't pull the brakes enough.
Right.
And vice versa, if I ride SRAMs for a little while, my first few stops on the Shimano brakes feel like there's no modulation.
Right.
Like, oh, these things are just on or off. Like I can't modulate them at all.
Right. I have been riding Saints on e-bikes, and that's been maybe that's part of why I appreciate it. I don't know. Maybe I'm learning how to brake harder for shorter as well. Maybe. It could be. Should we keep going?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. All right. We can do like an unboxing along with with this.
Okay.
Have you or anyone in the shop tried Tubolite tire inserts? The Evo HD insert is only 90 grams.
I've been meaning to try them.
Yep.
Here's one.
We just so happen to have one.
It's a lot squishier
than
a Cushcore. And this is something we've talked about a little bit, and Nathan used to talk about it too, is how Cushcore put a lot into the tuning of the compression of their material.
Right.
So yeah, this is light and probably protects your rim a little bit and probably does damp the air a little bit. But I would say maybe only 90 grams worth.
Right. Let me see that too. Yeah, that's this feels. Yeah, it's interesting. I would be interested in trying it.
Yeah.
But the
maybe I would put it in a bike that I just couldn't stomach the weight.
Right.
Just to have something.
Right. But the Cushcore XC, I don't think it's that much heavier.
And there's Cushcore Trail now as well. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, that's right. Cushcore Trail. That's halfway in between. The lightest and fastest device for your tubeless tires.
It really is like barely, like just like a pool noodle. I also wonder if is this a closed cell? Does it absorb sealant?
I don't know.
Looks like probably it doesn't
Maybe?
absorb sealant, but who knows?
Yeah.
I know that's one of the benefits of Cushcore and some of the other ones is that they don't absorb sealant.
That's true.
I bet that one doesn't.
Yeah. I bet you it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's been I read this article that was talking about World Cup XC bikes, and it's surprising how many riders are running inserts
in XC. Like more than we're admitting it in enduro. Almost,
yeah.
And are they running it front and back?
It varies. It's a mixture.
Did they say what inserts?
No, they tend to just say inserts these days.
Interesting.
I wonder if they're all just centering on what, and they just can't say.
Yeah, that's really good information, I feel like.
And some, yeah, like you said, some I feel like are a little hesitant to say.
Did they say why they run them?
Not really. They didn't get into that. I would be interested in hearing an interview on that side of it.
Did anyone mention, I don't need those because I run good tires and rims?
Well, one rider was saying, our rims are designed to, be light, take the abuse, and have the right ride performance.
What
that
rims
sounded
were
like
those?
I forget, but that sounded very much like the narrative, a curated narrative, right?
Yeah, but so if the fastest cross country, presumably
probably amongst the fastest, right?
There's these elite cross country racers putting inserts in their tires.
Yep.
It pretty much.
To me, that's performance. That's not they're willing to take a weight penalty and a reduction and a weight penalty on rotating.
Well, flats are a big
gains.
thing in cross country too.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is the flat protection and the rolling the tire and all that, and those 400 gram XC tires do flop everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
So it might be nice. I really, you know what I bet? I bet the added climbing traction pays off for the weight, like over whatever balances the loss of efficiency in the weight.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think they're running. I mean, they're running 17, 19 psi.
My thinking is most of those riders will risk the flat for the win. If that's all that's on the line.
Right. That's what I would guess too.
So the flat protection is probably a little bit of a cherry on top of something where they perceive it actually gives them an advantage in the race. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, I would.
Or it might also be that thing where it's like, hey, I need 550 gram tires to ride with confidence, or I can get 450 gram tires and ride with even more confidence with Cushcore.
Right.
And then it's like all kinds of wins.
That could actually be it. I've been riding, we've said it here, cross country XC Cushcore and some cross country tires on my trail bike, and I'm enjoying it. I don't know if I'm even running low enough pressure right now.
Right. It's trippy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's impressive. So Tubolites, haven't ridden them. 90 grams.
They seem too squishy to me.
They seem a little too squishy for me. Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's see. Maybe one more question.
Yeah. Take as many as keep them coming.
All right. Again, from Jason, thank you. At what weight of bike would you prefer a full power e-bike versus a mid power e-bike? At what weight of bike would you prefer a full power e-bike?
So I think the question is, what weight is kind of acceptable for a lower power versus what weight you would just be like, no, at that weight, I want all the power. Yeah. I think that's the question.
I think that's the question. I haven't thought of it in that way.
I kind of have.
Right. Like,
as in, if it's over 50 pounds,
might as well make it
better have all the power, or it's out of its class kind of thing.
Right. But it's not a 50-pound. I mean, I think in part being full power is why it is over 50 pounds.
Yeah.
With this generation of e-bikes.
Yeah, and the battery that goes with that.
Right.
Mostly.
Right. Motor a little bit heavier.
In some cases.
Oh, in some cases, not all. You're right. Yeah, the battery associated with it. Although, blurring the lines in my mind, I've really been thinking maybe no e-bike should be over 50 pounds. I shouldn't say no e-bike, but
to me, I guess another way of asking the question is, how many watt hours of battery do you have to strap to it to justify it being 50 pounds? And what conditions would also require that much battery?
Right.
I've been thinking a lot about the full power versus not full power thing lately.
Right.
We did a ride yesterday on not full power.
Correct.
And you made the comment that you just cover more ground on full power.
Yeah.
And that's true. And to that effect, I feel like there's something about what it does to your riding that's almost more akin to park days and shuttling, where you get those reps on the descents.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Right. That was the genesis of that comment that I made. Right.
I would say that and keeping up with other riders on full power are the reasons to want full power.
Right.
We were probably running along at a clip of maybe 75% the climbing speed we would have been on full power, give or take, I'm guessing.
Right.
We did, I think, 5 climbs and 5 descents or something like that, and we maybe would have done 6 or 7. So
see, but I'm not even sure about that, because the specific ride, the type of the ride fantasy that we might have envisioned that yesterday was not one of covering of reps. I think like
Yeah, but we mostly stayed moving mostly till dark.
yeah,
And we
that's
probably
true.
would have just done that anyway.
Yep.
And we probably would have done 2 more descents.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Give or take.
Right.
The descending would have had a little bit different quality for me in terms of kind of just the experience.
I know that on a full power mid-weight e-bike, I click down the power because of that exact thing. The descending is a different experience.
You click down the power on the descent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way, like, the relay that I'm riding has, it's reduced power, 60 Newton meters. And I just leave that thing on boost, even on the descents.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like, when you get after it, a couple pedal strokes doesn't feel over accelerating.
I was kind of more talking about how I can do like slashing moves
Oh, interesting.
and like smack the rear tire into a little like drift berm and like stuff like that.
Right.
More better. Not that I can't. Not that the big e-bike prohibits that stuff. It slightly less inspires it.
Right. That's on a mid-weight versus a full.
And just like little kind of flippy bike moves,
Right.
along with bunny hop wheelie manual stuff too.
Right. Man, but what if you had a full power mid-weight e-bike?
You do.
I do have that. Would you be able to like snap it into the berms a little bit harder on the descents or in a slightly different situation?
I suspect it's more like a rise.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be using the power to get more of that much very often.
Right.
Maybe sometimes.
Maybe on a flatter corners might be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know if it's a Jason, I'd have to think about that more. I don't know if the weight of the bike makes it need a full power.
Yeah, it kind of does in the sense that it justifies full power to me.
Right. Sure.
There's a certain way where it's like, well, it's full power, so it's going to be that heavy.
Right. Right. The full power. Yeah. You almost flip that question a little bit where you say the full power justifies a heavier weight bike.
But on the other side of that, I do think that the power, weight, travel conversation is going to take a different turn than what people want to talk about it a specific way.
Yeah.
Just all the mores on one side and all the lesses on the other side.
I'm perhaps in the same boat where you are.
I think a lot of us have a trail bike ride fantasy for some help up the hill. It doesn't have to be a particular amount. Like the amount of help that you get on your relay, 60 Newton meters,
right,
seems more than enough
Yeah.
for just getting up to the top of steep trails that otherwise I might only do 1 or 2 of, and I would be kind of redlining to get there and maybe doing it 4 times and getting more of a cardio workout.
Yeah. And I would say even in that case on a reduced power, I would run it in mid, like mid power or whatever, and still have a similar experience.
Why though?
I mean,
unless you have range anxiety
or like you're having a conversation or something like that.
Oh, right, because the person you're riding with is in mid or not on an e-bike. Or,
Right. Or that's just what you're
or because you're riding with me and I'm on boost and you're on mid.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, by yourself, I don't see any reason not to ride boost the whole time.
Yeah.
Unless you have range anxiety.
But I do think a way to think about it is more what trade-offs are important to you. So I think the lighter e-bikes have those bike handling, the playfulness.
Right.
If you really value that playfulness, maybe over some of the battery size.
Right.
That, to me, is why you do not full power.
Right. And even on the longer travel bikes like the Relay, that's 170. The Relay PNW is 170 on the rear, and mine is 180 on the front. And having it be 46 pounds, it could probably be 45 pounds if I didn't have, the zip moto and full cush core.
Right. I guess playful is one reason. I guess with the point of your Relay, also just bike kinematics.
Right. Bike kinematics. And I don't know if I'd call the relay playful necessarily. I mean, with that much travel
And that's lack of a head angle.
and that's like a head
So
angle.
it's very planted and stable, but it's playful compared to a lot of the big e-bikes in the sense that it inspires a playful and steady riding style.
Yes. Yeah.
And the confidence to be playful in the gnar.
Exactly. And I felt that last night. There's a particular trail that we ride that it's pretty high speed, pretty straight, but there's a couple segments on that trail where it drops and it gets rowdy, and there's some corners, and man, on the transition, that was
On the relay,
on the relay it was a lot of fun.
It seemed like it was pretty confidence inspiring and comfortable for you.
Yeah, that was.
We haven't really talked about your relay on the show.
Yeah, that's right. We haven't. So I have a relay. I got a relay. And, if you follow the shop on on Instagram or whatever, you saw me in my Hawaiian shirt and sort of matched the colorway of the bike. Yep. And so I've been riding that. And what do I think about it? So some of the things that I have set up, it is the carb. It's the carbon. It's the
X01 PNW with transmission.
Yep. But I thought the PNW was only don't they have the relay in LA?
They do, but both can be PNW.
Right. So mine, they're exact same, can be set up. I don't know if they sell the carbon in PNW.
I think yours was PNW. Yours came with a coil shock.
No, it didn't. I put the coil shock on after.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't mixed wheel either?
It was not mixed wheel either. Yeah.
Is it X01 transmission?
It is not X01 transmission. It is X01. Yeah. So I bought a carbon, I think it was a GX build.
Okay.
And then
That's right.
I had the DHX2 shock in the right size. And I also had a 180 fork that was also coil. And so I
was confused because you pretty much turned yours into a PNW, but
yeah.
we do actually have the PNW carbon builds in stock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's a hoot. So I did that. You can get them from the shop, which is fantastic. I didn't know they released them like that, but yeah, come ready built, and that's
that's 170 travel, if I remember correctly, coil rear shock, and 27.5-inch rear wheel.
Correct. I have Zipmoto rims and Cushcore Pro. Let's see. I am trying one of the Conti. Yeah, the Conti Cryptotol.
Is that your first time?
It is.
Is it as good as they say?
It is. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful.
I mean,
it's wonderful. Is it better than Maxxis?
I don't know. I mean,
it's as good.
It's as good. Maybe better.
So what is your bike? What is your relay weigh?
I think it's like 46.5, maybe just like touching on 47.
And your Trans Elite?
It's probably 45, I think.
So it's like owning. It's like back in the day if I'd owned like a Mega Tower and a Tall Boy.
Right.
They're like about the same weight.
Yep.
They're
different geometry.
Yeah, the geometry is a little different.
Right. Yeah, and
a little different.
It's like a 62.5 degree head angle. That is outrageous.
It's not straight 62. It's 62.5.
I haven't actually put a.
I almost feel like I remember the website saying straight.
Could very well be. It is. Yeah, it's slack.
It will. I have mine is here. I just haven't personalized it and taken it out and gotten it dirty yet.
Right.
And I think it's going to be the slackest bike I've ever owned.
I think this is the slackest bike I've ever owned. Yeah, that is true. And it feels like a downhill bike. It has the same kinematics as like a, like some of the last downhill bike I owned probably was, around 40 pounds.
Was it a Sunday?
It might have been a Sunday.
I bet that wheelbase and heading feels so short and head angles feel so steep now.
Right.
Because it was 65.
Yeah. But that same sense of the way that bike felt, the downhill bike felt, when I would ride the full power, full weight, 58-pound e-bikes, I thought that felt like a downhill bike, but what I realized when I hopped on this, the 47-pound version of that is I'm like, no, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like this feels more like a downhill bike, but I don't think it does because it doesn't have 200 millimeters of rear travel.
Right.
Yeah.
30 millimeters short.
Yeah, and I think that makes a difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But all that to say, it is so confidence inspiring. So confidence inspiring. Yeah.
Are you going to ride it with the battery out at all?
I would love to do that. Actually, should just take it out someday. Let's go ride without the battery in it someday. I feel like if when I ride by myself, I like really try to get after it, and I'm not sure how that would fare.
You might hurt yourself.
Right, exactly. Anyways, fantastic bike. The shop has them. That's great. So anyways.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Any more listener questions?
I think that might be it for now.
Cool.
Shop news?
Yeah. We're still hiring for a bike builder position, which, to clarify, a lot of times that's a good way to learn how to be a tech. It's like an entry-level tech position. You change some tires, build some bikes, gain some trust, maybe start doing some parts installs. Eventually, we start giving you some tune-ups, see how you do.
Right.
Stuff. Next thing you know, you're building wheels and rebuilding suspension and bleeding brakes.
Exactly.
So that could be a fun way to get into the industry for someone who wants to learn how to be a tech and who maybe already knows how to turn a barrel adjuster and kind of like the names of some tools and bike parts and stuff.
Right.
Other news.
How should people get in touch?
They can email sales@thepathbikeshop.com.
Got it.
Other news. We're still getting the new spot ready to move.
Mm-hmm.
I think by the end of the summer, we should have at least a soft opening over there.
Oh, that's great.
Countertops are 99% done. Next, we're doing like data drops and phone drops to everywhere and stuff like that, and finishing some retail fixtures, and we can really start moving soon.
And that's exciting.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of other little stuff that has to happen between here and there. So we'll probably announce a date maybe 2 weeks out.
Oh.
So if you haven't heard a date, it's at least 2 weeks. Both shops are booked out pretty far on service right now into early August. We had been sending people out to the Tribuco store for service, but now they're booked out to August 10th too.
Oof. Right.
So still, I was talking to a customer today. He was like, "Oh, the Tribuco store's still there?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure." I was like, "Why would you ask?" He's like, "Oh, just out of sight, out of mind." I was like, "Okay, well, it's still there."
Oh.
So yeah, everyone, the Tribuco store's still there. Go check
Great.
it out. Say hi to Dean. If you haven't seen Raul in a while or Ethan, those guys are still out there. You might longtime customers will know and love Raul because he's worked with us since he was a young lad.
Right.
For many years back before Live Oak existed.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it's good to know because I heard a wicked rumor that said the Live Oak store had closed, but they called it the Portola.
Weird.
Yeah, so weird. They called it the Portola store. But it's not the Portola store, and it's not closed, and
it's not.
It's the Live Oak store, and it's open.
It's open, 7 days a week, 10 to 5.
And this store is not closing. That was the other half of the wicked rumor.
That part's kind of like half true.
Yeah.
This store's moving.
This store is moving. That's true. We are moving. We're not closing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And a lot of, I'm pretty vague with a lot of people who come in asking questions about what's going to happen. Like, we don't have a hard out on this building.
Right.
And I don't plan to just vacate it right away. We have enough bikes, and long story short, I want to merchandise the new building really nicely and not have a bunch of stuff just packed into it.
Right.
And even though the display area is bigger, it's not enough bigger for all the bikes we have in stock.
Right.
By any stretch. And a lot of people don't know this, but on any given day in the Tustin store, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of like 120 bikes on our sales floor, and then maybe another 60 in the parking lot.
Right.
But our total bike inventory is like 600 bikes.
Right.
So,
wow.
So we're not vacating this spot anytime soon, and kind of actually, we've experienced a pretty big downturn in this kind of post-pandemic environment, and it's pretty difficult to say what future business levels are going to be like after the kind of things restabilize.
Right.
But I mean, I still have a business fantasy of occupying this space too.
Right.
I'm not quite letting go of that business fantasy yet.
Good.
So we'll see.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So speaking of moving, there is the
public facing part of the business will for sure be moving soon.
That's right. And speaking of moving, there is a moving sale going on.
Right. And if we do keep this location, maybe it'll reopen as maybe like an outlet store or something.
Right. Right.
We have different ideas for how this space could be. It can't be just storage. It has to be some sort of retail operation. So we'll see.
And that's in the rules. So
those are the rules, dude.
Those are the rules. Yeah. So come on down to the moving sale. I'm sure it'll still be on next week.
The moving sale, I would say it's safe to say, is starting to reach a full pitch.
Yep.
I would say we have probably still 250 2022 bikes that we want to sell before we move. And they're priced accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, these are pretty amazing, even just looking around.
Stores, we've kind of moved some of the 2024 bikes out of the display room to make room for all the bikes we have at like 25 to 50% off.
Yep.
And it's just full of deals. And then there's still plenty of hot new 2024s in the back that we can get out, and some on the floor.
Right.
And we continue. It literally is like a job every day to mark down more bikes and also build them, because we're still building 2022 bikes to put on sale, believe it or not. And that's just where a lot of us ended after the pandemic.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Product. The SRAM GX T-Type Axis is in stock.
Yeah.
Or is it in stock?
It is in stock. And they moved the battery, so in theory I think the assumption is that this is an iteration, an improvement.
Right.
And that probably eventually the nicer stuff is going to follow the GX actually in this case.
Right. One of the interesting things that I noticed was that the cassette weight is differential between the top end T-type cassettes, and the GX is less than on standard Axis or Eagle.
That's cool.
Yeah, so like the GX T-type cassette is 445 grams, and I think the XX1 is, or the XX I should say, is 385. So 445 to 385. That's actually not that much. 55 grams or so.
Yeah, I think the old variant was more like 100 grams.
It's 100 grams. Yeah. So that was encouraging. I'm tempted to get that GX for the e-bike.
GXT type.
Yeah.
So that interesting little side note on that. That Fazua motor that you have, from what I understand, is specifically designed around a 32-tooth chainring.
Got it.
From what I'm seeing, there are no 32-tooth T-type chainrings.
Got it.
34, yes. The shuttle SLs that we have in stock that came with T-type came with 34.
Right.
So I guess it's okay. I mean, if
Chris
Chris says it's okay, then it's okay, I think.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Or maybe a wolf tooth ring.
Oh, right. Because the wolf tooth has...
You just need a 4-bolt 104 T-type compatible ring.
Right.
And I trust wolf tooth when they say it's T-type compatible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't trust just anyone who says that.
Yeah. I wonder, do you guys have that?
As we both look back at the wall of chainrings.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we spent that listener question, I really enjoyed that.
That was good. Thanks for the questions, listeners.
Yeah. So thank you for the questions from Frank, John and Jason, thanks a lot for the questions.
I answered a customer question that I think could have been a good listener question recently.
Oh,
So we sold someone a pretty nice bike, and we shipped it to them across the country
okay.
on our web store.
Yep.
And they were a little newer to the sport, and they had a lot of questions all along the way with sizing and with bike style and
Right.
which is the right bike. And Tyler spent a bunch of time with them. I spent a little time with them. And then Tyler was on his day off, and I was helping out with some of these customer service questions and for the web store. And hey, I'm stoked on my new bike. You guys were so helpful. Thank you so much. Wanted to get your advice on frame protection. Like, should I put frame protection on my bike? Right. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of a scary question. Like, I almost had the initial response of like, I don't know how to give a good answer to that. But I think I thought about it for a while, and really what it came down to is that you got a few kinds of frame protection. You're like your racer tape, which is cheap and effective and
Right.
kind of ugly.
Right.
Kind of almost uglier than the scratch you're trying to protect it from. You've got your kind of semi-wrap, kind of like frame protection, which is basically a big sticker,
Right.
which in my opinion is still mostly uglier than the scratch you're trying to protect yourself
Right.
from it. And then you have the really nice like Invisiframe type stuff, which looks pretty good.
Right.
You got to look closely to see it. It is very labor intensive to put on and pretty expensive to buy.
That's what I've seen.
So and then I let them know all that, and then I said, a few of us in the shop run various forms of frame protection. Most of us don't.
Right. And the frame protection that's coming on bikes these days is much better than in years past.
So bottom of down tube is usually really protected these days.
Yep.
Chainstay
Yep.
on the drive side.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Like ridged chainstay protector.
I did mention that to that same person, if there's a spot on your bike that you always rub raw,
Yep.
put some racer tape on it.
Right.
On that spot.
Right.
So like some people always rub their chainstays raw with their heels.
Right.
Some people rub their top tubes with their knees.
Right.
Some people have a spot that their car rack rubs.
Yep.
If you know there's a spot that gets raw on your bike, you can protect it.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
good. And razor tape's cheap.
Yeah. You can always round the edges to make it look
A little better.
a little better.
But then it gets in the sun and starts to turn yellow.
That's true. I don't think I've really ever put racer tape except on the down tube before it was really well protected.
Back before most bikes came with really cool down tube protection.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we're looking around. That's good. That's good. I buy a lot of racer tape though. I should say I have in the past.
Here, look at me scroll through my paper.
I know, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Is that a whole podcast?
I think it is.
All right. Thank you, listeners. Thanks to all the crew at the shop. Thanks, Jake, and thank you, Auk. And most importantly, thanks to all the riders out there who support the path. And let's all remember to love the bike we ride.